for the common good, for the protection, safety, prosperity, and happiness of the people, and not for the profit, honor, or private interest of any one man, family, or class of men. Interesting. It's John Adams. Dennis in Holt, Michigan. Hey, Dennis, what's on your mind today?
Well, I got a really good one for you. Do you remember the the history of the Italian peninsula back? I think it was in the 1600s when Florence was popular, and they were known for their banking and how they went about doing business. And really, if you think about that, they actually didn't sell anything. What they did is they shipped things, right, and they took the products in, and they used that to actually create wealth.
Right, they did it the same way Hong Kong did, by being a transshipment point with very low tariffs.
Exactly. Well, here's what happens, is that if you base your total your total revenues that your country produces on banking, right? Basically what they're doing is shifting money from the poor to the rich, and pretty soon you've got yourself let's just say 500 families. Well, when do you think that the 500 families would like to become 200 families? You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Actually, I don't.
And then pretty soon, the 200 families decide, well, maybe we should whittle this down to 100.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You're talking about the increasing concentration of wealth in a smaller and smaller number of hands.
Right. And pretty soon, the Koch brothers are looking over their shoulder, right?
Yeah.
And what happens when that happens? Well, I can tell you what's going to happen is, at the end of all the counting and everything else, who do you think is going to have the power in this country to make the final decisions? It's going to be the military. And what I think is this. I think what's going to happen is that the soldiers are going to be the ones to decide. And right now, who would you say they would work for, the Koch brothers or the American people?
Wow. Given that so many of our, it brings up a whole bunch of thoughts all at once. Number one, a military coup is something that I think the founders were pretty sure that they were trying to, this is the whole point of the Second Amendment, or one of the major points of the Second Amendment, was this debate, this argument that Jefferson and Madison and the anti-federalist faction made in the late 1700s and even the early 1800s, that we should not have a standing army during time of war because of the danger of a military coup. And that's why they wanted us to have, like Switzerland does, rather than a standing army. I mean, Switzerland has one, but it's small. But rather than a large standing army, they wanted us to have local militias that could be called up during time of crisis or invasion. And the remnant of that today is the National Guard.
Hang on, let me just say this. Right now, the cities are loaded with stormtroopers, and you can say what you want, but those police officers are right-wing types of people.
By and large, yes.
And are they not a force for that purpose? And I don't care what city you're talking about. You can go from Los Angeles to New York, and the way that you get rid of them is you cut off their legs, which is their union. And that's what the people should do right now. And that's the first thing I would do if I was in New York. I'd cut their legs out from under them. I'd say, hey, listen, we got to get rid of unions. By the way, that's what they say. I mean, that's what the Koch brothers say. That's what the right wing says. And then put them out. And they're making $150,000 for killing people.
Yeah, they're never going to go after.
They don't care.
Yeah, they're not going to go after the police unions, Dennis. Number one. And number two, I think police officers, just like everybody else, should have the right to union representation. But number three, I don't disagree that the police unions have negotiated contracts with the cities and counties and states for whom those police work that gives the individual police officers, when they've committed crimes, far more latitude than far more due process than the rest of us get when we've committed crimes, and I think that needs to be fixed.
Have you seen one of them ever get picked up and prosecuted in New York?
No, it's extremely rare, and for the reasons that you're outlining, and like I said, I don't disagree with that. That's something that should be addressed, but let's not do it in the context, Dennis, and thank you for the call. Let's not do it in the context of trashing unions. Let's be very clear. But back to your original point of, do we have to fear the possibility of a police state? Authoritarian-minded people, the people that John Dean wrote about in his book Conservatives Without Conscience. Authoritarian, there's a small number of authoritarian leaders. There's a large number of authoritarian followers. And most of the people who voluntarily and enthusiastically become police officers or members of the military are authoritarian followers. Not all of them, certainly not all of them, but probably well over half. And if you look at the history of other countries, when authoritarian regimes came to power, whether it was Mussolini in Italy, Hitler in Germany, Franco in Spain, look at all the countries in Central and South America, the history that we see over and over and over again is that when an authoritarian leader comes to power, the structures of power and authority within the country, which are principally the military and the police, and secondarily the court systems, which Donald Trump is right now, as Mike Papantoni just pointed out, 650 federal judges. He's fixing to completely reinvent the entire federal judiciary. Those institutions, being inclined toward authoritarianism to begin with, become more authoritarian. So the most enthusiastic people at rooting out the Jews in Germany, the most enthusiastic people at finding the communists in Spain, the most enthusiastic people at finding the trade unionists in Italy and utterly destroying them during the 1930s were the police, with great enthusiasm. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't have police. I'm not saying that, the police, the whole thing needs to be changed. But if you look at the police, number one, and the military, number two, if you look at the military during the Vietnam era, when we had a draft, or during World War II when we had a draft, our military represented a broad cross-section of Americans. And so the percentage of authoritarian followers was probably about the same percentage as it is in the general population as a whole, which is around 20%. I would argue that, and in our police departments, a lot of police departments, it was just a good job. Even New York, particularly New York City, hey, they've got a strong union. You can make $100 grand a year if you work some overtime. It's a good job, good benefits, 20 years and you're out with a pension. It doesn't get better than that. So in those kind of environments, you end up with police officers who represent the broad spectrum of America. But when you start paying really poorly, as many of our police departments do, and when you lower the standards for entry, as many of our police departments have done because they're paying poorly, because Reaganism has just kneecapped the ability of towns and counties and cities to have enough money to pay for municipal services like police and fire. As your standards and your pay drops, more and more the people who enthusiastically sign up to be police officers are not, it's no longer people who are looking for a good pay and a pension. It's now people who are looking for the ability to pull out their billy club or their gun and beat the crap out of or kill whoever they want, whenever they want. In other words, the authoritarians. So this is one of the reasons why I've been saying for years and years and years, with regard to the military, we need to bring back the draft. There needs to be a non-military option for conscientious objectors, for people who are not fans of being part of the military, so that they can work in a hospital or a school or something like that. But everybody takes 1 year after high school and either goes into the military or does public service. It's a rite of passage, something that we have lost and are lacking in our culture. It would be a good thing psychologically and culturally for people. And with regard to our police, we need to start paying, just like police and teachers. My old shtick, I've been saying this for decades. Our teachers hold our future in their hands. Our police hold the quality of life of our present in their hands. And we dump on both of them. We don't pay teachers well, and we don't give them respect. And in most parts of the country, we don't pay cops well, and we don't give them respect. We don't hold them to high standards. And both of those things need to change. And as I said, our military. And until we look at these things, these systemic things, and say, you know, this is actually a threat to democracy, that our military is being filled up with people who are authoritarians, that our police departments are being filled up with people who are authoritarians, so that just laying the ground, seeding the ground, or fertilizing the ground, so that when an authoritarian leader like Donald Trump comes along, everybody's going to snap into line. We have seen this happen in country after country after country. And it would be a terrible, terrible thing if it happened here. We need to be awake to these possibilities.